My mother called me on a Tuesday, not to invite me to my sister's rehearsal dinner, to give me an assignment. "Claire," she said, before I had finished saying hello, "Dana needs someone to help coordinate at the venue on Friday. The caterers are new, and you know how these things go. You're good at this kind of thing." I was standing in my office on the 14th floor of a building downtown. Through the glass wall, I could see my team 11 people who had chosen to work for me, who had turned down other offers, who showed up every morning because they believed in what we were building. I had a call with a new client in 40 minutes. I had a proposal due by end of week for a resort development worth more than my parents' house. I said, "What time do I need to be there?" That's the thing about being the invisible one in a family. You stop expecting to be seen. You just adjust to the shape of the space they leave for you. Dana had been the visible one since the day she was born, 7 years after me, with her father's eyes and our mother's talent for making every room feel like it was built for her. She was never unkind exactly. She was just entirely convinced that the world organized itself around her needs, and our family had spent 3 decades confirming that belief. The rehearsal dinner was at the Hartwell, a venue in the old part of the city. Beautiful space. I knew it well. I had consulted on their operational restructuring 2 years ago, spent 4 months with their general manager, redesigned their entire event intake process. They had sent me a bottle of champagne when their revenue went up 30%. I didn't mention that to my mother. I said I would be there at 5. She said to wear something I didn't mind getting dirty. I want to say that stung, but that's the honest truth. I had heard that sentence so many times, in so many forms, that it had long since lost its edge. You become anesthetized to a particular kind of pain when it's delivered consistently enough. My mother never meant it cruelly. She just never thought about what she was saying, because she had never had to think about me very carefully. I hung up and finished my coffee. Then I picked up my phone again and sent a message to my assistant. "I'll be working remotely Friday. Clear my afternoon after 2. She replied in 30 seconds. "Of course, Miss Merritt. Should I reschedule the Ashworth call?" I stared at that for a moment. The Ashworth family had retained my firm 3 months ago. A resort development outside the city significant project, exactly the kind of work we had spent years positioning ourselves for. The family was old money with new ambitions, and they had heard about us through the kind of word of mouth that takes a decade to build. Their representative had told my team they were impressed with our reputation for discretion. Discretion. That word had always suited me. I replied, "No, keep it. I'll take it from my car if I need to." What I did not know yet, what I could not have known, was that 3 members of my team had been invited to that rehearsal dinner, not as colleagues of mine, as professional contacts of the Ashworths, who had included several business relationships on the guest list as a gesture of goodwill. James, Rachel, Daniel. 3 people who had sat in my conference room, brought me problems, and watched me solve them. 3 people who had never once heard me mention a sister named Dana. I found that out on Friday night. Let me tell you how I built something they never saw. After college, I took a job at a mid-sized hotel chain doing events coordination. Not glamorous. Long hours, difficult clients, weekends that disappeared into other people's celebrations. But I was good at it in a way that felt almost involuntary. I could walk into a room and immediately understand what was wrong, what was missing, what needed to move 3 feet to the left. I spent 5 years doing that before I understood that I was solving problems other people were charging for. So I left. I started Merit Hospitality Group out of a 1-bedroom apartment with 2 clients and a spreadsheet I had designed myself. My first year, I made less than I had at my hotel job. My second year, I made more. By my 5th year, I had a team of 4 and a list of clients that included 2 restaurant groups and a boutique hotel brand. My parents came to my apartment for Thanksgiving that 5th year. I had just signed the lease on my first real office space. I tried to mention it over dinner. My mother said, "Oh, that's nice, honey," and turned to ask Dana about the promotion Dana had just received at the marketing firm where she worked. Dana talked for 20 minutes. I refilled the water glasses. I am not telling you this to make them sound like villains. They are not villains. They are people who found it easier to see one daughter than two, and they made that choice so many times it stopped feeling like a choice. It just became the architecture of our family. I stopped trying to explain what I did around year 6. Not out of bitterness, more out of a practical recognition that the conversation was never going to go anywhere useful. When Dana asked, I would say I did consulting. She would nod and change the subject. My father would ask if I was doing okay, meaning financially, and I would say yes, and he would look relieved and move on. They did not know about the office. They did not know about the team. They did not know about the Ashworth contract, or the proposal I had sent to a hotel group in 3 cities, or the award my firm had received from an industry association the previous spring. None of that was a secret. It was just information no one had thought to ask for. Dana's engagement to Gregory Ashworth had been announced at a family dinner 4 months ago. My mother had cried. My father had opened a bottle of wine he had been saving. I had hugged my sister and meant it. Gregory seemed like a genuinely decent person, the kind of man who listened when other people were speaking, which already put him ahead of most. I had not connected the Ashworth name to my client. Not until my assistant's message. I should have figured it out sooner. I will admit that. But I had never heard Dana mention Gregory's family's business interests, and I had never been curious enough to research the Ashworth family beyond what I needed to know about my sister's fiancé. The consulting world is larger than people think. By the time I realized the connection, it was Wednesday. The dinner was Friday. I thought about calling my mother and explaining. I ran through that conversation in my head. Then I decided to go serve tables. The Hartwell looked exactly the way I remembered it. High ceilings. The kind of lighting that makes everyone look like they belong in a painting. The event director, a woman named Sylvie who had worked there for years, met me at the service entrance and handed me a black apron without any particular expression. "Your mother said you'd help with the floor," she said. Sylvie and I had worked together closely during the restructuring. She knew exactly who I was. She also clearly knew what was happening. She handed me the apron the way you hand someone an umbrella in a storm with a kind of careful neutrality. I tied it around my waist. "What do you need?" She walked me through the setup. 42 guests, seated dinner, 4 courses. The Merritt family on the left side of the room, the Ashworth side on the right. I would be covering 4 tables on the Ashworth side. I noticed that immediately. The Ashworth side. I started setting out water glasses. The room was still empty. It smelled like fresh flowers and warm bread from the kitchen, and for a moment I just stood there in the quiet, in a venue I had helped rebuild, holding a water pitcher, thinking about how strange a life can become when you stop correcting the assumptions people make about you. The guests arrived at 7. I was refilling a bread basket near the window when I heard the door and looked up. James Caldwell walked in first. He was wearing a dark suit and talking to someone I didn't recognize. Then Rachel appeared behind him, laughing at something. And then Daniel, who had been with my firm since year 3, who had sat across from me through 100 difficult conversations, who called me Miss Merritt with a sincerity that still occasionally caught me off guard. Daniel saw me in approximately 4 seconds. His face did something complicated. I gave him a look I had used exactly once before, in a meeting with a difficult client when I needed him to stay quiet and let me work. He understood it then. He understood it now. He gave the smallest nod I have ever seen from a 6'2" man and turned to accept a glass of champagne from a passing tray. James hadn't seen me yet. Rachel had I caught her eyes go wide for a fraction of a second before she smoothed her expression into something professional and looked away. 3 of my most trusted people. In this room, at this dinner, I picked up my pitcher and went back to work. By 8 o'clock, I had served 2 courses and refilled approximately 40 water glasses. Dana had not looked at me once. She was incandescent that evening, the way she always was when all the attention was pointed at her, laughing at the right moments, touching Gregory's arm with perfect ease, drawing the Ashworth family into her warmth like she had been practicing for this exact room her entire life. She probably had been. My mother sat 3 tables away, resplendent in a dress she had bought specifically for this occasion. My father nursed the same glass of wine for an hour. They both looked genuinely happy, and I did not begrudge them that. James found me at the side table near the kitchen door during a lull between courses. "Miss Merritt," he said, very quietly. He said it the way you say something when you're trying not to be overheard in a room full of people. "James." He looked at the apron, then at me, then back at the apron, as though he was hoping the second look would make it make more sense. "What?" he started. "My sister's rehearsal dinner," I said simply. He processed that. "The bride is your—" "Yes." He was quiet for a moment. James had been with me for 6 years. He was not a dramatic person. It was one of the reasons I had made him VP of operations. He dealt in facts and next steps. "Do you want me to—" "No." I picked up a clean set of tongs. "Not yet." He looked at me for another second. Then he nodded and went back to his seat. Rachel caught me near the dessert station 20 minutes later. Her approach was more direct. "This is not okay," she said under her breath. "It's one dinner, Rachel. You built the operational system for this venue. I know." She exhaled through her nose. "Miss Merritt, I need you to trust me on the timing." I looked at her steadily. "Can you do that?" She was quiet for long enough that I thought she was going to argue. Then she said, "Yes, but I want the record to show I object." "Noted," I said, and handed her a dessert menu to look at, so we would stop appearing to have an urgent conversation. Daniel had said nothing to me all evening. He was seated at a table with Catherine Ashworth, Gregory's mother, and 3 other Ashworth family associates. He was listening more than talking, which was his way. Every so often, I felt his eyes follow me across the room. I did not mind it. I had worked with Daniel long enough to know that when he went quiet, he was thinking carefully. And when Daniel Park finished thinking carefully, what came out of his mouth was always precise. I was counting on that. What I had not accounted for was Dana's toast. Catherine Ashworth had her son's eyes and 40 years more experience using them. She had been watching me since the first course. I noticed it the way you notice weather, not alarmed exactly, but aware. She was the kind of woman who made an art of appearing to pay attention to whoever was speaking while actually cataloguing everything in the room. Between the 3rd and 4th course, she stopped me. "Excuse me," she said. Her voice was unhurried. "Could I trouble you for still water? The sparkling is lovely, but I find it too much by the end of an evening." I reached for the still pitcher. "Of course. You've been very attentive tonight." She wasn't reading the menu. She was looking at me directly. "Are you with the Hartwell's regular staff?" There it was. "I'm helping for the evening," I said. She watched me pour. "You have the manner of someone who knows this room well." I set the pitcher down. "I've spent some time here." She smiled. It was the smile of someone who has learned that patience extracts more information than questions. "My son speaks very highly of the firm that's been consulting on our property development. Merritt Hospitality Group." She said the name the way you say something you've heard often. "Do you know them?" The table had gone slightly quiet. Daniel, 2 seats from Catherine, had gone entirely still. I've heard of them, I said. Remarkable operation from what I understand. Gregory says the founder has an unusual mind, very calm, very thorough. She tilted her head. He thinks she might be the best in the business. I picked up the picture. That's kind of him to say. He's not kind so much as accurate, Catherine said. He has his father's precision. She paused. What's your name, dear? I felt Daniel's eyes on me like a physical thing. Claire, I said. Something moved across Catherine Ashworth's face. A recognition, or the beginning of one. She glanced at Dana, who was laughing at the far end of the room, and then back at me. Claire, she repeated. She didn't say anything else. But she didn't look away either. I excused myself and went back to the kitchen. That was when Dana stood up and asked for everyone's attention. Dana had a gift for speeches. She always had. At our grandfather's 70th birthday, she had stood up without notes and made 40 people cry in under 5 minutes. At her college graduation dinner, she had toasted our parents with a precision and warmth that still came up in family conversations. She knew how to hold a room. She held this one. She thanked the Ashworth family with a grace that made them lean toward her. She thanked Gregory in a way that was specific enough to feel private and public enough to be charming. She talked about the night they met, the morning he proposed, the things she had learned about loving someone steadily. I stood near the door to the kitchen and listened and thought that whatever complicated feelings I had about my sister, she was genuinely remarkable at this. Then she looked across the room at me. I also want to thank my big sister, Claire. She said it with a smile that had warmth in it. I want to be fair, there was real warmth in it. Claire is always there when we need her. Tonight she's literally serving us dinner. Light laughter. The polite kind. She raised her glass. That's just who she is. Never needs the spotlight. Happy to be in the background, keeping things running. We don't deserve her, honestly. The smile widened. To Claire, the most dependable woman I know. Glasses went up around the room. I did not move. My mother was beaming. My father raised his glass. On the Ashworth side, people drank politely without really knowing who they were drinking to, except for 3 of them. James had put his glass down without drinking. Rachel was looking at the tablecloth. Daniel was looking at Dana with an expression I had only seen him use once before, in a meeting where a client had said something that was technically not wrong, but was deeply structurally dishonest. Dependable, Dana said again, finishing her thought. Some people shine, and some people make sure the lights work. She laughed softly. My sister is the lights. The room applauded. I picked up a water pitcher. I had told James and Rachel, not yet, and I had meant it. I had planned to let the evening finish, collect my apron at the end of the night, drive home, and do nothing. I had no interest in a scene. I had the Ashworth project, my team, my firm. I had everything I needed. I did not need this room to know who I was. But I had not spoken to Daniel. And Daniel had spent 9 years working with me. 9 years of watching me walk into difficult rooms and wait for exactly the right moment. He had learned the same skill. The applause was fading when Daniel pushed back his chair. He did it slowly. Not dramatically. Daniel never did anything dramatically. He stood up the way you stand up when you've made a decision and you're entirely at peace with it, which is somehow more commanding than any dramatic gesture. I'm sorry, he said. I hope you'll forgive me for speaking out of turn. The room turned toward him. Catherine Ashworth looked at him with an expression of calm interest. Gregory frowned slightly, reading the moment. Dana's smile held, but her eyes had gone careful. I'm Daniel Park, he said. I work with Merit Hospitality Group. We've been retained by the Ashworth family for their resort development, and several of my colleagues and I were graciously included tonight. He nodded toward Catherine. Thank you for that. Catherine inclined her head. I want to add something to the toast, Daniel said. He picked up his glass. He didn't look at me, he looked at the room, specifically the center of it, where Dana's smile was becoming harder to maintain. Miss Merritt Claire founded our company 12 years ago. From one client, one contract. He paused. She now leads a team of 14 people. We've consulted on over 60 hospitality properties across 8 states. Last year, our work was recognized by the National Hospitality Association. The room was absolutely silent. She also, Daniel continued, with the exact measured pace of a man who has given presentations to difficult audiences, consulted on the operational restructuring of this venue, the Hartwell, approximately 2 years ago. He let that land, which is why she moves through this room like she knows every corner of it, because she does. James had put both hands flat on the table. Rachel had closed her eyes briefly. My mother had gone the color of the tablecloth. Dana had stopped smiling. I've worked with Miss Merritt for 9 years, Daniel said. I've watched her walk into rooms where she wasn't expected to know anything and solve problems that entire teams had failed to solve. I've watched her do that quietly, without needing to explain herself. He raised his glass. So I would like to offer a slightly different toast. He looked at me for the first time, to Claire Merritt, who has never needed anyone's spotlight, because she generates her own. He drank, James drank, Rachel drank. Catherine Ashworth drank with the composed certainty of someone who had just had a suspicion confirmed. Gregory drank, looking between his mother and his fiancé with dawning understanding. The rest of the room drank because they didn't know what else to do. I stood near the door to the kitchen holding a water pitcher. I looked at Daniel. He looked back at me. 9 years of knowing each other, and all I needed to say was in that look something between thank you and I told you not yet and I'm not angry. He gave me the smallest nod, again. Dana said my name. Once. The way you say something when you're testing whether the word still works. Claire. It was a beautiful toast, I said. To the room, not to her. Both of them. Then I set the water pitcher on the side table, untied my apron, folded it neatly, and walked to Catherine Ashworth's table. She was already extending her hand. Miss Merritt, she said, I think we've been speaking to each other all evening without realizing it. I believe we have, I said. She gestured to an empty chair at her table. Would you like to sit? I sat down. Gregory leaned across his mother and said quietly enough that only a few people near us could hear, I am so sorry. I had no idea my family's firm was. You have nothing to apologize for, I said, and I meant it. Dana did not speak for a long time. When she did, it was to ask the catering staff for more wine, in a voice that had lost all of its earlier music. My mother sat frozen in her chair across the room. My father was looking at the table. The evening had reorganized itself around a new center of gravity, and there was nothing either of them could do about it. This is the part I want to say carefully, because it matters. I was not happy that the room had seen it. I was not triumphant. If I'm honest, there was something in my chest that ached the particular ache of a thing that should have been simpler, a family that should have been able to see me without needing 12 years of proof. But I was free. That's the only word for it. Something that had been pulled tight for a very long time had finally released. I sat at Catherine Ashworth's table, and we talked about the resort project for 20 minutes, and it was the most comfortable I had felt all evening. My mother called me at 8:30 the next morning. I let it ring. She called again at 9, and at 9:15, the 4th time I answered. She didn't apologize right away. That wasn't her way. She started with, "You should have told us." I thought about that for a moment, about the Thanksgiving dinner where I mentioned the office, about the dozens of conversations that had gone nowhere, about every time I had been handed an apron, metaphorically or literally, because that was the shape of the space they left for me. "You should have asked," I said. She was quiet. "Mom," I said it gently because I meant it gently. I'm not angry at you. I want you to know that. But I need you to understand that the version of me you have in your head, the one who handles things, the one who stays in the background that was never the whole person. She said my name. It broke a little at the edges. I know, I said. I know. Dana texted me that afternoon. It was long an explanation and a kind of apology braided together, the way Dana's communications always were. She said she hadn't meant the toast the way it landed. She said she didn't know. She said she was embarrassed. I read it twice. I wrote back, I know you didn't mean to hurt me, but you did anyway. I need some time. I pressed send and put my phone face down on my desk. On Monday, Catherine Ashworth's assistant called my office to confirm our next meeting and to ask, on Mrs. Ashworth's behalf, whether I might consider expanding the scope of the project. There were 2 additional properties the family was considering, and they wanted us involved from the beginning. I said yes. Gregory sent a handwritten note. It arrived Tuesday. 3 sentences. I want you to know that what I witnessed on Friday only deepened my respect for what you've built. I hope, in time, that we can all find our way to a table where you don't have to carry anything. Welcome to the family, properly this time. I put it in my desk drawer. James stopped by my office Wednesday morning and stood in the doorway the way he did when he had something to say but wasn't sure how to start. You knew they'd be there, he said. That night, I suspected, and you still went. I looked at him. Someone needed to fold the napkins. He laughed, actually laughed. The kind that surprises you on the way out. Then he shook his head and went back to his desk. Daniel said nothing to me all week. On Friday, there was a small plant on my desk when I arrived, a succulent in a terracotta pot, no card. But I knew. I have thought about that evening many times since, about what it means to be invisible in the place that was supposed to see you first, about how long I carried the particular loneliness of that, not with bitterness, but with a weight I had grown so accustomed to that I had stopped noticing it. The weight is gone now. My family is still my family. My mother is trying, in the small, imperfect ways she knows how. Dana called last week. We talked for 40 minutes. It was not easy, and it was not resolved, and I don't expect it to be resolved quickly, but she called, and I answered. I am not interested in a version of this story where I win and they lose. That was never the point. The point is that I exist, fully, with 14 people who show up every morning because they believe in what we're doing, and one client who keeps finding new reasons to keep us at the table, and a venue in the old part of the city where the event director once handed me an apron with careful neutrality and never once told anyone what she knew. I exist, and they know it now. The spotlight was never what I wanted. I just needed them to stop pretending the room was dark.